In this votive Mass of Our Lady, the Immaculate Heart of Our Lady, Holy Mother Church wants us to pay attention to and to remind ourselves of the victory that Our Lady herself has promised in her Immaculate Heart. We celebrated yesterday the Feast of Saint Agatha, and the Gospel or the reading of yesterday's feast. St. Paul is reminding us that God chooses the weak things of the world, that, as he says, no flesh may glory in his sight. God specifically and purposefully chooses the weak things of the world so that his power is more manifest. And so it is for that reason that, for instance, we read that reading on the Feast of Agatha, a young girl who, by her intellectual, moral, spiritual victory, conquered the Roman Empire. All the weight of the Roman Empire could not conquer her. And so for the grand victory, God has reserved this victory for another young woman, seemingly helpless, seemingly powerless, a woman without money or prestige, earthly prestige, or earthly power, and that is his Holy Mother. God's victory will come at the hands of his Holy Mother. Not a victory of armaments, not a victory of the sword, but a victory of the heart, the Immaculate Heart. The Immaculate Heart which loved God and loved God first, in accordance with his commandment to do so. And so, therefore, when Our Lady tells us that in the end her Immaculate Heart will triumph, this is exactly the will of God. And so in her humility, God is able to do great things. So when we are devoted to her, God is also able to do great things if we remain humble. And so this is what we need and want, a victory through her, through his Immaculate, the Immaculate Heart of his Mother. While Mary looks to be weak and without power, as she did standing beneath his cross, being reviled by evil men, being laughed at for sure, as they mocked her son, they would have mocked her too. In that sense, we could say that she was the most despised woman on the face of the planet. And yet this is exactly the woman through whom God will be victorious. And what is seemingly powerless, what is seemingly without merit, is only an exterior appearance and not the reality. And so when God asks us ultimately then to follow the example of St. Titus in his efforts of the gospel, or follow the example of Mary in standing beneath his cross and joining him on Mount Calvary, we have to understand and remind ourselves that the appearance of things can be very different, can be opposite as to the reality of things. An apparent failure might easily be, in reality, the greatest of victories. And so we place ourselves at the disposal of our kind and generous intercessors, that we might learn to follow ever more perfectly the will of God. God love you.